The Zithran Empire had conquered 47 worlds in less than 3 centuries, and they had done so without losing a single major battle. Their secret wasn't superior numbers or even particularly advanced weaponry, though both were impressive. No, the Zithrans' dominance rested on a single technological marvel that had rendered conventional warfare obsolete: the quantum phase shield. Admiral Krovan stood in the observation chamber of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion, his triple-jointed arms clasped behind his crystalline carapace. As he gazed at the blue marble of Earth rotating slowly in the void before him, the planet was beautiful, he had to admit. With its swirling white clouds and vast oceans catching the light of its yellow sun, it reminded him of Tharsek IV, another primitive world that had fallen to the Empire a decade ago. That conquest had taken all of 3 hours. Admiral called out Science Officer Mytok from her station, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of female Zithrans. Preliminary scans are complete. The dominant species calls themselves humans. Technology level is classified as Type 0, 7 on the Kardashev scale. They've achieved basic orbital capability and possess primitive fusion weapons, but nothing that should pose any threat to our shielding. Krovan allowed himself what humans might have called a smile, though on his angular features it appeared more like a predatory baring of teeth. Fusion weapons. How quaint. What yield are we talking about? Their largest tested device was approximately 50 megatons. Crude, inefficient. Our shield generators can absorb 10 times that amount before requiring a cool-down cycle. Mytok paused, her tentacles dancing across her interface. Admiral, there's something unusual in their military deployments. They seem to be stockpiling massive quantities of kinetic projectile weapons. Ancient technology, really. Chemical propellants firing metal slugs. The Admiral's laugh echoed through the chamber, and several junior officers joined in nervously. Bullets? They're going to defend their world with bullets? He turned to face the assembled command staff, spreading his arms wide in theatrical disbelief. Honored warriors of the Empire, we stand on the precipice of the easiest conquest in our glorious history. These humans still use gunpowder while we wield the power of quantum physics itself. He activated the central holographic display, and Earth appeared in miniature above the command table. With a gesture, he highlighted the major population centers: New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, each pulsed with a red glow indicating military activity. Our intelligence indicates they have approximately 2 billion combatants, if we count every human capable of holding a weapon. Impressive numbers for a primitive species. But numbers mean nothing against shields that exist partially outside normal space-time. He pointed to one of the crimson dots. A single Zithran warrior, properly shielded, could walk through their largest military base and emerge without a scratch. Their bullets will pass through our quantum fields like stones through water. Tactical Officer Zhenkor, a scarred veteran of the Andromedan campaign, stepped forward. Permission to speak freely, Admiral? Granted, the humans have been unusually quiet since we entered their system 3 rotations ago. No attempts at communication, no surrender overtures, no panic broadcasts, just silence and preparation. It makes me uneasy, Krelvin waved a dismissive hand. "They're in shock, Gencor. It's a common reaction among primitives when they first encounter a truly advanced civilization. They can't comprehend what they're facing, so they fall back on what they know, fortifying positions, stockpiling weapons, praying to their various deities. None of it will matter." He pulled up a technical schematic of the quantum phase shield, the Empire's crown jewel. The three-dimensional model rotated slowly, its internal mechanisms visible through translucent layers. "Let me remind everyone why we are invincible. The quantum phase shield doesn't simply stop incoming projectiles or absorb energy. It exists in a state of quantum superposition, phasing between our dimension and subspace at a rate of 10,000 cycles per second. Anything attempting to penetrate it simply passes through empty space during the phase shift." Mytok added, "The only theoretical weakness is if something could match our phase frequency exactly. But that would require technology far beyond what these humans possess. They would need quantum computers, advanced sensors, and an understanding of multi-dimensional physics that clearly eludes them." "Exactly," Krelvin confirmed. "Their fusion bombs will create impressive explosions, but the energy will dissipate harmlessly across dimensional barriers. Their bullets will literally pass through our warriors without touching them. It would be comical if it weren't so tragic." The Zithran War Council had debated for less than an hour before reaching their decision. Earth would become an example, a demonstration to the rest of the galaxy of what happened to species that refused the Empire's generous offer of subjugation. The vote had been unanimous. Now, as Krelvin studied the readouts from his scout ships, he felt a familiar anticipation building. This was the moment he lived for, when a new world recognized the futility of resistance and bowed before Ithran's superiority. Some species fought at first, of course. They always did. But the fighting never lasted long once they saw their most powerful weapons failing against quantum phase technology. "Fleet status?" he asked. "All 300 vessels are in position, Admiral," reported Fleet Coordinator Dolvex. "Troop carriers are prepared to deploy 50,000 warriors to the surface. Orbital bombardment platforms are charged and ready, though I doubt we'll need them." "Good. Open a communication channel to Earth. All frequencies, all languages. Let's give these humans one chance to surrender before we demonstrate why resistance is futile." The communications officer worked quickly, and within moments, a holographic representation of a middle-aged human male appeared above the command table. He wore what appeared to be a military uniform, though the details meant nothing to Krelvin. The human's face was lined with stress, but his eyes held a hardness that momentarily surprised the Admiral. "I am Admiral Krelvin of the Zithran Imperial Fleet," he began, his translator rendering his words into English. "You are the representative of this planet's dominant government?" "General Marcus Chen, United Earth Defense Command," the human replied curtly. "And we represent all of Earth's governments, acting in unity for the first time in our history." "How touching!" "General Chen, I bring you a message from the Zithran Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our domain. You have one of your planet's rotations to surrender unconditionally. All military forces will stand down, all weapons will be decommissioned, and your governing bodies will dissolve to make way for imperial administration. The humans' expression didn't change. And if we refuse, then we will take your world by force, and the casualties will be significant. I've reviewed your military capabilities, General. You fight with chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles, primitive tools that will prove utterly ineffective against our technology. Surrender, and your people will be treated fairly under imperial law. Resist, and you condemn billions to unnecessary suffering. General Chen was quiet for a long moment, and Krelvin could see him weighing the options. This was usually when they broke, when the reality of their situation crashed down upon them like a collapsing star. But instead of despair, something else flickered across the human's features. It took Krelvin a moment to identify it. Amusement. Admiral, Chen said slowly. Humanity has a saying. There are three things all wise men fear: the sea in storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentleman. You're about to learn why we added a fourth, a species with more bullets than sense. The transmission cut out before Krelvin could respond. The Admiral stared at the empty space where the hologram had been, trying to parse the human's words. It had sounded almost like a threat, which was absurd. What could bullets possibly do against quantum phase shields? Well, he said finally, turning back to his command staff. I suppose we have our answer. The humans choose destruction over wisdom. Very well. Begin the invasion. Deploy all ground forces to their major population centers simultaneously. I want this planet subdued within 24 Earth hours. Yes, Admiral. The response came from a dozen voices simultaneously as the command staff rushed to their stations. The Eternal Dominion and her sister ships moved into high orbit, their massive hulls blotting out stars as they positioned themselves over Earth's continents. Smaller troop carriers detached from the capital ships like seeds from a dandelion, their engines burning bright as they entered the atmosphere. Each carrier held 500 Zithran warriors, their quantum phase shields already activated, their plasma rifles charged and ready. Krelvin watched the deployment with satisfaction. The carriers spread across the globe in a precisely calculated pattern, each one targeting a major city. The simultaneous assault would prevent the humans from concentrating their defenses, scattering their forces too thin to mount any effective resistance. Admiral, Mytok called out, her voice uncertain. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from multiple locations on the surface. It's not weapons charging or shields activating. It's more like communications, massive data transfers between facilities, probably coordinating their futile defense, Krelvin said dismissively. Let them communicate. It won't help. The first troop carrier entered the lower atmosphere over Beijing, its shields glowing softly as friction heated the air around it. Inside, Commander Vexitha stood before his battalion of warriors, their crystalline armor gleaming under the interior lighting. Each warrior was a veteran, chosen for this honor of being among the first to set foot on the new conquest. Warriors. Vexitha's voice boomed through the carrier. Today we add another world to the Empire's glory. The humans below us are primitives, armed with weapons that cannot touch us. Show them mercy where possible, but do not hesitate to demonstrate our superiority. Trust in your shields, trust in your training, and trust in the Empire. The warriors roared their approval. slamming their fists against their chest plates in perfect synchronization. The carrier's landing thrusters engaged, and Vexither felt the familiar sensation of descent. Through the viewport, he could see the sprawling cityscape of Beijing below, its towers reaching toward the sky like fingers of steel and glass. What he couldn't see, what the Zithran scanners couldn't detect, was the true nature of what waited for them. In every building, on every rooftop, in every subway tunnel and underground bunker, humanity had prepared something the galaxy had never witnessed before. The doctrine of overwhelming firepower taken to its absolute extreme. General Chen stood in the UEDC command center, 300 meters below the Rocky Mountains, watching the tactical displays as red icons representing Zithran carriers descended on every major city simultaneously. Around him, officers from every nation worked in seamless coordination, their differences forgotten in the face of extinction. All units report ready, reported Colonel Sarah Matthews from the communications station. 8 billion small arms, 400,000 crew-served weapons, 60,000 artillery pieces, and every single missile system we could manufacture in the last 3 months. Sir, if this doesn't work, it'll work, Chen interrupted, his voice carrying more confidence than he felt. They think we're primitive because we use bullets. They don't understand that sometimes the old ways work because they're simple, reliable, and you can make a lot of them very quickly. He pulled up a calculation on his personal display, one that had been running continuously since they'd first detected the Zithran fleet. The math was brutally simple. Each Zithran warrior had a shield that could phase 10,000 times per second. But what happened when you fired 11,000 bullets per second at that same warrior? What happened when 1 million humans all fired at once, creating a wall of metal so dense that the space between bullets was measured in millimeters? Sir, Matthews said quietly, the first carrier is landing in Beijing. Commander Zhao reports his forces are in position. Chen nodded slowly. Then let's teach these aliens what humans do best. Give the order. All units, weapons free. Show them what 8 billion gun owners looks like when they're pissed off. As the first Zithran warriors stepped onto Earth's soil, confident in their invincibility, humanity's answer was simple, devastating, and delivered at 3,000 feet per second. The age of the quantum phase shield was about to end. The age of more bullets was about to begin. Commander Vexither was the first to touch Earth's soil, his boots crunching against the concrete of what had once been Beijing's main thoroughfare. His quantum phase shield shimmered around him like a soap bubble made of starlight, its gentle hum a comforting reminder of his invincibility. Behind him, 500 warriors fanned out in textbook formation, their plasma rifles held ready. Their multiple eyes scanning the abandoned streets. The silence was unnerving. Vexither had expected panic, screaming civilians, perhaps some token resistance from local military forces. Instead, the city appeared deserted. Buildings stood empty, their windows dark like hollow eye sockets. Vehicles sat abandoned in the middle of streets, doors left open as if their occupants had simply vanished mid-journey, spread out. Vexither commanded through the neural link connecting his battalion. Secure the primary government buildings. Remember, The humans cannot harm you. Trust your shields." The warriors moved forward with the casual confidence of gods walking among mortals. Their scanners picked up life signs, thousands of them, clustered in the buildings around them. The humans were hiding, watching, waiting. Vexitha felt a moment of contempt for their cowardice, before remembering that they were primitives facing technology they couldn't comprehend. Of course they were afraid. What he didn't know, what the Zithran intelligence had completely failed to grasp, was that the humans weren't hiding in fear. They were hiding in position, waiting for a single word from General Chen, half a world away. In the UEDC command center, Chen watched the tactical display as Zithran forces deployed across the globe simultaneously. Beijing, Moscow, New York, London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Lagos, Sydney, Mexico City. 300 carriers, 50,000 warriors, all of them walking confidently into the most elaborate trap in human history. All units reporting enemy forces deployed and exposed, Colonel Matthews announced, her voice steady despite the tension radiating from every person in the room. "We have clear fields of fire on 97% of enemy combatants." Chen looked at the faces around him, seeing his own fear reflected back. They were betting everything on a theory, on calculations that suggested the impossible, that their primitive weapons could overcome, shields that bent the laws of physics. If they were wrong, humanity would be enslaved or extinct within days. But if they were right, execute Operation Infinite Storm, Chen said quietly. Matthews didn't hesitate. Her fingers flew across her console, sending a single encrypted command that propagated across every military network on Earth. In bunkers, buildings, tunnels, and trenches, 8 billion humans received the same two-word message. Weapons free. The world exploded. In Beijing, Vexitha had just raised his hand to signal the advance when every building within visual range erupted with fire, not plasma, not energy beams, but something far more primitive and infinitely more terrifying: bullets. The sound hit first, a roar so immense it transcended hearing and became a physical force that vibrated through bone and crystal alike. Thousands of machine guns, tens of thousands of rifles, hundreds of thousands of pistols, all firing simultaneously from every window, every rooftop, every concealed position humanity had spent 3 months preparing. The air itself became solid metal. Vexitha's shield flared brilliant white as the first rounds struck it, phasing harmlessly into subspace as designed. His confidence held for exactly 3 seconds. Then more bullets arrived, and more, and more. His shield phased faster, catching some projectiles, missing others as they passed through empty space. The quantum field was designed to handle threats sequentially, phasing in and out of reality fast enough that nothing could touch the wearer. But the humans weren't firing sequentially. They were firing everything, all at once, from every direction. Vexitha watched in disbelief as his shield indicator began dropping. 95%. 90%. The generator was overheating, trying to phase faster than its cooling systems could handle. Around him, his warriors were experiencing the same impossible situation. Their shields flickered and strobed like dying stars as the sheer volume of incoming fire Overwhelmed quantum mechanics through brute force. Fall back. Vexifer screamed into the neural link. Reform at the carrier. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The humans had waited until the Zithrans were deep in the city, surrounded on all sides. Now every angle was a killing field. A warrior to Vexifer's left, a veteran named Kreshtok, saw his shield indicator hit 20%. He tried to run, but the mathematics were inevitable. At 10%, his shield began flickering visibly, gaps appearing in the quantum field. At 5%, a bullet found one of those gaps, then another, then 100 more. Kreshtok's crystalline armor, never designed to be primary protection, shattered like glass under the onslaught. His body disintegrated in a purple mist of blood and tissue, reduced from a living being to scattered atoms in less than a second. And the humans didn't stop firing. Impossible. Admiral Krelvin stared at his tactical display aboard the Eternal Dominion, watching in horror as casualty reports flooded in from every deployment site simultaneously. His hands trembled as he tried to process what the sensors were telling him. This is impossible. Their weapons can't penetrate quantum phase shields. Admiral, Mytok's voice was shrill with panic. The shields are failing, not from penetration, but from thermal overload. The humans are firing so many projectiles that the phase generators can't cycle fast enough. The shields are designed for periodic threats, not continuous bombardment. On the main screen, live feeds from Warrior helmet cameras showed absolute chaos. The humans had turned mathematics into a weapon. A Zithran shield could phase 10,000 times per second. A miracle of engineering that should have made its wearer untouchable. But the humans were firing 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 bullets per second at individual targets. For every bullet that phased harmlessly into subspace. Tumor arrived during the brief moment the shield was corporeal. It was death by statistics. Warfare reduced to its most fundamental truth. If you throw enough of anything at a target, eventually something will hit. Sir, Dolvex shouted from his station. We're receiving distress calls from all ground units. They're requesting immediate extraction. Casualties are at 40% and climbing. 40%. Krelvin couldn't breathe. The Zithran Empire hadn't lost 40% of a force in a single engagement in over a century. How many humans are firing at us? Mytok's tentacles danced frantically across her console, pulling data from orbital sensors. When she spoke, her voice was hollow with shock. Admiral, based on thermal signatures and projectile tracking, approximately 8 billion small arms are currently active. The humans have armed their entire population. Every civilian, every child old enough to hold a weapon, every elderly citizen who can still pull a trigger. They're all firing 8 billion guns. The number was incomprehensible. The Zithran Empire's entire military, spread across dozens of worlds, numbered less than 200 million. The humans had 40 times as many combatants, and every single one of them was firing as fast as they could reload. New contacts, screamed the sensor officer. Incoming artillery from every continent. Thousands of shells, tens of thousands. On Earth, the artillery barrage began. Human crews had calculated precisely. where the Zithran warriors would be based on their predictable tactical formations. Now shells rained down, each one exploding into thousands of high-velocity fragments. The shrapnel struck shields from above, below, and all sides simultaneously, creating omnidirectional stress that the quantum fields simply couldn't handle. Commander Vexitha watched his battalion die. Artillery shell exploded directly overhead, and 3 warriors' shields collapsed simultaneously under the fragmentation pattern. They died screaming, their bodies torn apart by metal traveling faster than sound. Another warrior tried to return fire with her plasma rifle, but the moment she stopped moving, concentrated machine gun fire from 6 different positions overwhelmed her shield. She fell, her crystalline face frozen in an expression of disbelief. The carrier was only 200 meters away, but it might as well have been on another planet. The street between Vexitha and Salvation was a river of bullets, tracers creating a solid wall of light. His shield was at 30%, the generator so hot it was burning through his armor, searing his flesh. Every step forward cost him another 5%. As thousands of rounds hammered against the quantum field, he didn't make it. At 10%, his shield began flickering. At 5%, he saw a tracer round coming toward his head, saw it phase through empty space, saw his shield cycle back to corporeality, saw the bullet General Chen watch the tactical display with grim satisfaction. As the red icons representing Zithran forces began winking out. In Beijing, 90% casualties. In Moscow, 85%. New York, 78%. The numbers told a story of slaughter on an unprecedented scale. "Sir," Colonel Matthews said quietly, "the remaining Zithran forces are attempting to retreat to their carriers. Should we allow it?" Chen considered for a moment. The humanitarian in him wanted to let them go, to end the killing. But the strategist knew better. Negative. Continue fire until every hostile is eliminated or evacuated. This has to be a lesson they never forget. He pulled up a communication channel to every human fighter on Earth, all units. "This is General Chen. You're doing humanity proud. Keep firing. Don't let up for a second. Show them what happens when they underestimate the species that invented the machine gun." The response came in the form of intensified fire. Humans who had been conserving ammunition now opened up with everything they had. The Zithrans trying to reach their carriers ran a gauntlet of fire so intense that the air itself became a fog of vaporized metal. Shield generators exploded from thermal overload, some becoming bombs that killed nearby warriors. Others simply shut down, their safety protocols triggering when temperatures exceeded design limits, leaving their users naked against the storm. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Krelvin made the hardest decision of his life. All carriers, emergency evacuation. Leave the dead. Leave anyone who can't reach extraction in the next 60 seconds. Get our people out of there now. The carrier's engines screamed as they lifted off under fire. Humans had positioned anti-aircraft weapons at every site, and now missiles, rockets, and heavy machine guns tore into the ascending ships. Most carriers' shields held, but 3 were hit so many times in rapid succession that their larger generators suffered the same fate as the personal shields. They crashed back to Earth in flames, their hulls torn open, their crews dead or dying. The retreat became a rout. Zithran warriors abandoned their weapons and ran for the carriers, their legendary discipline dissolving in the face of impossible casualties. Some made it. Most didn't. The humans showed no mercy, maintaining their fire until every Zithran was dead or evacuated. When a warrior's shield failed, concentrated fire from dozens of weapons ensured they didn't suffer long. Commander Vexither was among the lucky few who reached a carrier before it lifted off. He collapsed inside, his armor scorched black, his shield generator a melted ruin against his chest. Around him, other survivors huddled in shock, their eyes vacant, their spirits broken. They had gone to Earth as invincible warriors. They were returning as traumatized refugees as the carrier broke atmosphere. Vexither looked back at Beijing through a viewport. The city was still there, battered but unbowed. And on every rooftop, in every window, he could see the tiny figures of humans, still at their positions, still ready to fire. 8 billion gun owners, united in defiance. He turned away, unable to bear the sight of his failure. Admiral Krelvin received the casualty reports. With growing horror, of the 50,000 warriors deployed to Earth, fewer than 8,000 had been evacuated. 42,000 dead in less than 4 hours. The worst defeat in Zithran history, administered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral, Mytok said quietly, "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. General Chen wishes to speak with you." Krelvin wanted to refuse, to flee the system in shame. But he owed it to his dead warriors to hear what the humans had to say. Put him through. General Chen's hologram appeared, and Krelvin was struck by how tired the human looked. Not triumphant, not gloating, just exhausted. "Admiral Krelvin," Chen began, "I'm going to make this simple. Leave. Never come back. Tell your empire that Earth is off limits, permanently. Tell them what happened here today. You slaughtered my warriors," Krelvin said, his voice breaking. "Your primitive weapons shouldn't have been able to. Our weapons aren't primitive, Admiral. They're elegant, simple, reliable. And we can make 10 million of them in the time it takes you to build one shield generator." Chen leaned forward. "You came here thinking technology would save you. But warfare isn't about having the fanciest toys. It's about combined arms, tactical flexibility, and the will to fight. You had fancy shields. We had more bullets than you had shield cycles." Krelvin said nothing, the truth of it crushing him. "There's an old human saying," Chen continued, "quantity has a quality all its own. You just learned that lesson the hard way. Now get out of our system, and don't come back unless it's to talk peace. Because next time, we'll fire twice as much." The transmission ended. Krelvin turned to his bridge crew, seeing his own defeat reflected in their faces. "Set course for home," he said quietly. "Maximum speed. And someone start writing the report. The Empire needs to know that the age of quantum phase shields is over." 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened to discuss Earth's application for membership. The Zithran representative, still traumatized from reviewing the battle reports, stood before the assembly and said something no Zithran had ever said before. "I recommend immediate acceptance." The humans have proven themselves more than capable of defending their sovereignty. And speaking as someone who witnessed what they did to our invincible forces, I strongly suggest we never, ever make them angry again. The vote was unanimous. Back on Earth, General Chen stood before a memorial wall being constructed in Geneva, etched with the names of the 38,000 humans who had died in the brief but brutal defense of their world. The victory had come at a terrible price, but it had been necessary. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. We might use primitive weapons, but we use them very, very well. A young soldier approached him, saluting sharply. "Sir, the armories are asking what to do with all the unused ammunition. We still have billions of rounds stockpiled." Chen smiled grimly. "Keep it, all of it, and make more, because the next species that calls our guns primitive needs to understand what we proved to the Zithrans. When someone says your weapon can't win, they just haven't seen you use enough of it yet." The memorial wall gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to humanity's oldest truth. Sometimes the best answer to a complicated problem is a simple solution, applied with overwhelming force. The Zithrans had learned that lesson in blood. The galaxy would never forget it.